Welcome to Wildly Wealthy Life, the show that's all about exploring the different paths to a life of freedom and fulfillment and how that ripples through your personal life, family life, and to the community. Join husband and wife power couple Lee and Kat Hughes as they share people's stories from different backgrounds and lifestyles about what it means to live a life well lived. Tune in and take that first step to becoming the best version of yourself, personally and professionally, here on Wildly Wealthy Life.
My motto is travel more, spend less, and live better. Just think about the different ways you can try to optimize your life and reduce some expenses here and there and kind of snowball your debt where you're accelerating your path to financial freedom.
All right, and welcome again to another episode of Wildly Wealthy Life podcast. And I'm Lee. My awesome wife and co-host here is Kat. And who do we have on today?
Today we have Lee Huffman. Lee is...
That's a great first name.
It is a great first name. Hold on, wait. It is your first name. Is that why it's great? But anyway, we have Lee. He is a blogger and writes specifically about traveling, travel hacks, and he loves sharing his tips and experience on how to travel more, how to spend less, and ultimately just how to live a better life. Really excited to chat with him because I love travel hacks as well, and I love credit card points and all of that good stuff. So yes, I'm so excited to chat with Lee. Lee, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. You know, it's exciting to be here, and it's not very often I meet another Lee that's a male, because I get a lot of mail for Mrs. Lee Huffman, and I throw them away. So it's nice that there's another man in the house with the same name, Lee.
Woo!
Glad to be here with you.
Well, Lee, tell us a little bit about what you do, how you got started, and just a little bit about you.
Sure. So I've been writing my blog, baldthoughts.com, since December 2012. And at the time I was working in corporate finance for a bank. And it's one of those things I've always had the personality of wanting to kind of win, right? Finding the hacks or finding the little loopholes to try to move things forward and tilt the balance in your favor. And so my wife and I started traveling quite a bit. Actually, before we even got married, our dates were basically going on trips using the Southwest Companion Pass. We would fly to Chicago or Vegas or anywhere, and we would have a weekend in an awesome town for less than the price that you would probably go out for a nice dinner in your hometown. Yeah. And so, although I was making good money at the time, I'm very frugal, and my friends just kind of assumed that, oh, it's because you're making good money that you're able to travel this much. And I said, no, it's all about miles and points, and let me show you how to do it. And a lot of people didn't really believe it. So what I started doing was writing my blog and taking screenshots of the things that we do and showing what the price in points is versus the price in cash, and just saying, look, here's the evidence. This is something that you can actually do. And this was way before miles and points became much more mainstream like it is today. And so we've been doing that. And then really it was also kind of like a pressure release valve for myself, because high stress, focusing on budgeting and forecasting, and just my life all day, every day was Excel and PowerPoint. Getting into being able to do some writing was like a different part of your brain that you're able to use, and it was a lot of fun that way. But ultimately, a couple of years ago, in like early 2018, it was made clear to me that it was time to leave my job. And so what I did, I said, I can find another corporate finance job. And then have to put in all the time and effort to build a reputation at the new company and learn all the systems and the people and everything like that. Or, I can say, let's see if I can make something out of this writing that I've been doing, whether it's making more money on my own site or making money by writing for other people. And at the time, our kids were 3 and 7. And my wife and I always talked about, look, it's amazing how fast they've already grown and how much we've kind of missed out based on how many hours we were working. I had a 3-hour round trip commute. Wow. And, I didn't want to be one of those parents that didn't get to experience a lot of those great things with your kids. Yeah. And so what we decided, we moved from California, where it was really high, really expensive as far as the housing costs and everything else. And we moved to Nashville, Tennessee. The house we bought was basically half the price of our home in California and 30% bigger. And by moving to a lower cost area, enabled me to really focus on my business and not have to need the same paycheck that I was having in California.
Yeah.
And luckily, my wife was able to transfer within her company. And ultimately, she's changed jobs since then and moved forward with her career. But she's supported me for so many years, kind of being second fiddle as far as her career, so that way I can focus on mine. Now it's kind of me repaying her by me taking the lead as much as I can on taking the kids to school and picking them up and taking them to sports and doctor's appointments and everything else. That way she can focus on her career and move forward and realize her potential as well.
Yeah, definitely like tag teaming. You guys are tag. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
With the eventual, what were some of the triggers for you that helped you know that it was time to leave like the corporate job and pursue the writing and podcasting and blogging?
Oh, there were quite a few. Probably won't get into it too much, but yeah, even though I was always like one of the top rated people, towards the end of that time frame, I got zeroed out on my bonus, got zeroed out on my raise. I went from being reporting directly to my manager, who reported to the CFO. I got pushed down two additional levels, so I was actually 3 levels below my boss then. And at the end, I was actually reporting to somebody who's probably in their mid to late 20s and had like 1 or 2 years of banking experience. I had a lower title, significantly lower salary, and lower grade level than me. So it was made quite evident that if you don't leave, then we're going to make you leave. So at least that's the way it was presented to me. That's the way I thought about it.
With the blogging, was it when you started it, you said that it was kind of like a good outlet because you're always focused on spreadsheets and all that stuff and numbers. And so writing was a different way to kind of exercise your brain. Was that something that you've always been passionate about or that kind of developed over the years? And also, how did you kind of, like when you started blogging, was it more of just a hobby and then you didn't realize that it was going to turn into something actually profitable later? Or was it something you planned from the very beginning?
Well, I mean, I think everybody that starts a blog thinks that they're going to be tremendously successful. They're going to all of a sudden be rich and be everywhere and stuff like that. Then like the reality sets in and you get like 30 cents from like your first affiliate click and you're like, oh, it's a lot of work, right? But no, I mean, even way back in the day when I was going to college, applying for colleges, I literally didn't apply for any school that I had to write an essay. So, that's how much that I really wasn't focused in writing,
Yeah.
But I think it's just one of those things that I've kind of grown into it, and I realized that I liked it, and I think it's part of it's not like I'm writing short stories or I'm writing fiction or anything like that. It's something that I'm also passionate about. I'm passionate about airline miles and hotel points and credit scores and saving for your future and paying off your debt. So I'm passionate about all those things. So it's easier to do it that way, And then really, like, over the years, I've been attending different conferences that are related to the personal finance field and travel, both from an end user as well as from like the back office side, like basically all the creators, and just the friendships I made and seeing their success. And no offense to them or anything like that, I'm like, well, you considering my background, considering the education I have in finance and investments and insurance and everything else, I'm like, if they can do it and they don't have this background, I can easily be half as successful as them, if not as successful as them. And so that again, it gave me the confidence that that I had that background, and I don't know. I think it's just one of those things that it's like anything else that when you first start doing it, whether it's like, like with the podcast, right? The first couple of times you did the podcast, like, oh my God, you look back at it now, it's like, that is horrible, but over time you practice it more and more and you kind of refine it here and there. And you kind of don't realize it at that moment. But when you look back at it, especially when it's like a year or more back, you're like, wow, all those incremental steps really transformed the way I do things. And I am infinitely better now than I was back then.
Yeah.
But in the moment, you don't really notice it.
Yeah. I guess what I'm really hearing you say is that you can pretty much learn any skill, even if you're not naturally good at it, or if you think you're not naturally good at it, because maybe you were just good at it already, but you just thought that I don't like writing, but then you gave it a shot, and obviously it's something that you're passionate about. It's definitely a lot easier to write about something you're passionate about. But what I love, and just to point out for our listeners, is that you can learn any skill, you can develop any skill, and when you start, it may be horrible when you start, and I think everybody starts, and when they start, they kind of suck a little bit at things that they do to start on. But again, over time, if you are persistent about it, that you could actually develop it. And I've read some of your articles, and I the one that I read recently is the one with the American Airlines. The one, I think it's like your most recent blog post anyway.
Oh, sure.
The American Airlines, how to get points without having to travel.
Yes.
Points. So I really love that, because it's actually you're writing to, it's also definitely also backed up by research, and obviously some of the things you've also experienced this, and how to actually. So I love, I just love the stuff that you write about. So for our listeners, I think it's really worth a shot to check out your blog, because there's so many nuggets on there. I want to transition a little bit and just talk about when you were saying, you came from investments and all that stuff. How are you, or how diverse is your portfolio as far as your investments and your passive income, and all the different sources of income that you pull from?
Well, at the peak, probably 6 months ago, I had 9 rental properties, and in the fall, I actually sold 2, and I have another one that's actually listed for sale right now. One because let's see, I bought 2 of them back in 2006. And I bought another one probably 7 years ago. And so I looked at it as, okay, this is a way to diversify my income and to save for the future and get passive income. I basically, when I was looking at my overall portfolio, I treated my rental properties as basically my bond, essentially like a bond, right?
Yeah.
That was the thing that was going to provide that passive income for me. But now that I left my job, instead of just saying, oh, okay, great, I'm getting some cash flow in there because I worked hard diligently to pay off the debt. Because before I left my job, I listened to this podcast, the Radical Personal Finance podcast with Joshua Sheets, and he had an episode talking about being able to pay off all your debt in 10 years or less. That way you can retire at any point, right? To get that financial freedom. And I started doing the math and saying, okay, well, if I pay off my student loans, I pay off my car, pay off these rental properties, and just basically snowball each one of those payments.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, over the course of 10 years, without changing my life very much, I can have everything paid off, including our primary mortgage. And, I was in my early 40s when I did that. And so I said, okay, well, at that point, I will be, around 50 to 52 years old. My kids will be like in high school. And that way I can, if I don't need to work, if I don't have to work, then I can be 100% focused there and try to keep them out of trouble. Right. That was really the game plan. And by focusing on paying off all that debt, that actually enabled me to make that transition from the corporate job to now freelancing full time, because I didn't have as much of a debt burden every month. So I can have a little bit more freedom and not have that pressure to, oh my God, I need to make X number of dollars this month. Now it's like, okay, well, the amount that I need to make from freelancing is fairly small. Hopefully none of my clients are listening, because I do want to still keep getting paid. This is not a negotiating tactic, so you can reduce my pay. But, but no, it was one of those things that it gave me that kind of reassurance it was okay to make that switch, right? And then also by having that passive income from the rental properties, which I had 2 of them paid off, and I was on the process of working towards the third one being paid off. Then I was like, okay, well, even if I don't make anything from freelancing or make very little, at least I have some rent coming in from those, right? And so it gave me some assurance that everything would be okay. But then when I had more free time and I was doing my taxes last year, I started looking at it, and being the numbers guy that I am, I started looking at it. I'm like, wait a minute, this is only how much I made from a profit perspective. And then I started taking a look at that versus what my equity is in the properties, and then doing the numbers on it. I'm like, okay, well, I'm only getting maybe 3% return on these properties. that's not a very good return for the amount of risk that you have. Because if anybody out there is listening and they have rental properties, you know that you have occasionally a vacancy, occasionally you're going to have repairs, you're going to have a roof or an HVAC or whatever that goes out, and you and I as maybe as homeowners, or you're taking care of your home, it's different than you taking care of your home versus a renter. The renter is like, whatever, that's not mine. The landlord will take care of it. Versus you're like, okay, I'm going to hold off on doing this repair, or I'm going to do this something minor, or you're going to take care of it a lot better versus a renter. And so I started looking at it, started thinking about the risk. And I said, it's not worth it. North Carolina, where my rental properties are, they have the occasional hurricane that comes through where you have some damage on roofs. In the last decade, I've had roof repairs, replacements, even HVAC replacements, all those things. Those are $5,000 to $10,000 hits. And when even if you're making $200 or $300 cash flow to yourself, that's like 3 years worth of profits gone.
Right.
And North Carolina, where I'm investing, it's not a huge appreciation market either. So it's not. I mean, basically, it's the cash flow is really the main thing from those properties. And so based on that, I said, okay, I'm just going to sell those 3 because they're just not generating enough. The other 6 I actually bought them with a partner, and our equity is pretty nice in those, because essentially what we do is we buy them distressed, fix them up, and then refinance them based on a higher appraised value after doing all the repairs. And so our actual investment in those is pretty low. Our equity is pretty nice. And so the numbers on those are still pretty good. But these other 3, I bought them more retail price, because it was long before I really understood the process of being able to buy them distressed and being able to create that equity that way. And so the numbers are different on the ones you can buy and fix up yourself versus buying them at retail.
Yeah, definitely. Now with with the idea of, like, obviously you're doing you have the rental incomes, and then the blog, and obviously you made that switch as well from being in corporate America, and then all of a sudden having that switch that wait, I can probably not work there, for the rest of my life, and still have an amazing life, just that idea of building wealth for yourself and for your family. What does that look like to you, and what is your idea, your personal idea of wealth?
Sorry, guys. My brain wasn't functioning right.
Okay.
Can you repeat that again, please?
Yeah, what is just your personal idea of wealth?
Well, for me, it's right now I'm as wealthy as I've ever been, just in the sense that being able to spend more time with the family. And even though I do work a lot now, I think it's just kind of in my nature. I'm a workaholic that way, right? Because I'm always have all these different balls you're kind of juggling in the air. But being able to take my kids to school and take them to their sports and be there with them. I mean, sometimes I just bring my iPad and I'm sitting there working on an article while they're at gymnastics or ninja course class, and having that freedom and that ability to do whatever I want, whenever I want is worth more than, I mean, like when I worked at the bank, between bonus and salary, I was making $200,000. And I'm making nowhere near that amount now. I have that potential to do that if I wanted to focus 100% on freelance.
Right.
Some of my friends make $300,000 or more writing articles. I mean, it kind of blows my mind that you can make that kind of money, right? And so for me, it's trying to find that right balance of spending time and doing everything I want with the kids and my wife, writing for my own site, getting my own podcast up and running, and then freelancing for other people. So I'm trying to find that right balance. I don't know that I've really found it yet, but I'm getting closer with every day, but the main thing is keeping that main priority goal of, the reason why we moved here is being able to spend more time with the family. And like, some of that money's great that you can make, but sometimes you just got to say, okay, I have enough. I'd rather spend an extra hour or 2 with my kids than write another article.
Yeah. That's awesome. The valuation that you've probably had a huge shift, I would imagine, from working the corporate life and then to where you're at now. What do you think would there be anything that would draw you back into the corporate life, or now that you're experiencing what you are, do you feel, like you said, like you feel as wealthy as you've ever been? Would there be anything that would draw you back?
I mean, if I had, like, say my wife lost her job, and the only way I can replace her income was by going back into the corporate life,
Yeah.
I would do that if I needed to, for the best thing for my family, But I'll say this, like, one of the other things that kind of really turned me off to, at least to the job that I was in before, was when my dad passed away. And he was, other than my kids and my wife, like, he was the number one important person in my life, for a long time. And when he passed, um, it was one of those things where it was the middle of budget season. He was in the hospital, and I was working long hours, for the two executives I was supporting, and just doing all that for literally for months. And I kept talking to him. He was in the hospital and in rehab, trying to get back out of the hospital as far as getting his legs underneath him again.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, between having a young kid at the time, working long hours, I just can't. I have to focus on myself. Like, your time has passed in that regard, right? Like, I have to move. I have to focus on the future instead of focusing on the previous generation. And then, okay, finally the budget season was mostly over. I had a little bit of a break in early January, and coincidentally enough, on the day that I arrived was the day he got out of rehab. He got home, and he basically told me as soon as he got home, he's like, "Look, I think reality set into him, and he's like, I'm not going to be able to function here at home. I need you to find assisted living for me." And
Mhm.
so, because at the time he was 75, and I said, okay. And so I spent the next 3 days touring all these different assisted facilities, trying to figure out the math, trying to make it work. And we found one for him. And he's like, okay, I'm ready to go. Tell him to come pick me up. I said, Dad, it doesn't work that way. We have to go through insurance. We have to get through the doctors, their notes, everything like that to get you in. And I can, looking back at it now, I can literally I can see the kind of the glimmer in his eyes kind of died. And then when my brother took me to the airport on Saturday, we were both talking. He was like, well, how long do you think it's going to be before Dad goes back in the hospital? And we're like, well, I don't know. But he went back in the hospital on Monday, and then he died the following Sunday.
Wow.
And I mean, it was it was really bad. I don't want to cry right now thinking about it, even though it's been 8 years. It still makes me cry whenever I think about it.
Yeah.
But when I got back to when everything happened, I obviously immediately went out there to be there, and I just missed by a few hours because he was in North Carolina, I was in California, just trying to get there in time before he passed, because the doctor said, look, he only has a short time left. And my immediate boss was really good about everything. He's like, take as much time as you need. And so I was there for a week, came back for a week, and then I went back for another week to kind of take care of the house and take care of my mom, get her taken care of. But the executives I was supporting and the CFO that ultimately I reported to, they were not nice about the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was on the phone with one of the executives I was working with, and I started breaking down crying just because I was so raw in the moment. And he's like, it sounds like I need to let you go. And that was pretty much it. Nothing.
Yeah.
Not even, hey, are you okay?
Yeah.
Nothing like that. And both him and the other executive I supported and the CFO, none of them said, hey, how are you doing? Are you okay?
Mm-hmm.
Not a word.
Yeah.
And so it's like, the corporation was very focused on, family, and stuff like that. But when it came down to it, I didn't get that feeling. I didn't get that reality with them. And so that was in 2012. And so that was like a big wake up call to me that there's a lot of words that are being said out there, but the actions do not align with those words. And so even though that wasn't the main driver of me leaving, I think that was in my subconscious, and it probably sparked the flame of leaving.
A big shift for you, for sure. Yeah. And feel for you. Actually, about a month ago, my father passed too. And
sorry.
Yeah. But I think I've replaced like any of the longing with like just a gratefulness for being able to see my dad, because a lot of things, same thing, was like it's busy time dealing with a bunch of things. Some things just happened to shift for me where I had to fly to one of our rental properties to fix up a unit. And my dad he was a truck driver, and he happened to have the day off, which was really weird because he's always on the road and stuff. But he had to get a physical, so I got to see him on a Monday. He passed his physical on a Tuesday, and then he passed on February 5th.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, but it's kind of weird. Like he almost knew it was coming, and then like everything opened up for us to be able to see each other. So it was really grateful. But yeah, I mean, if I didn't have the flexibility and the time to be able to go see him that last time, I would be in a lot worse position. And like for a lot of our listeners, when you have to make those sacrifices for life, money, and spending time with family, it's a tough choice. But I love that you've been able to get past that, to be able to really carve open your days and your time for your family, because I'm sure like they mean the world to you. Your wife.
Absolutely. And one thing that I've done in kind of remembrance of my dad, because he was always very focused on the family. We always came first, and so on the day of his passing, January 22nd, every year that's my personal holiday. I don't care what happens. Like that day, I'm not working. I am focused on family. We're spending time together, doing something. Or I just kind of take some time to like self-reflect on what's going on and everything. Because I obviously don't want to take the kids out of school. But it's one of those things that on the anniversary of his passing, a couple of years later, our bank got sold that I was working for, and phones going off, BlackBerry's going off, everything like that. At the time, I just turned it off. I'm like, you know what? It's already been sold, so we'll talk about it tomorrow. Yeah. And I just completely ignored all the messages that day, and because I knew that my dad has to come first.
Yeah.
How are you? Because I mean, that's a huge, like a lot of people will have that weight, of having to respond right away, especially now with, technology.
Everything coming at you.
Like, laptop, phones, everything like right around us right now. How are you able to kind of put those things aside and put what really matters in front of you?
Well, the good thing I love most about my iPhone is that I learned the do not disturb feature. And so, so I have it automatically go on at 9 p.m. and not turn back on until 7 a.m. So I don't get disturbed unless it's like an emergency call from somebody on my emergency list, and when I'm focusing on an article or I really need to focus, I turn it on during the middle of the day also, I mean, the people that ultimately really need me will be able to get a hold of me. I mean, I'm writing articles on the internet. I mean, like how critical is that anyways, and so, but yeah, it's just one of those things that it's more of a productivity hack than it is anything, is that look, sometimes you just need uninterrupted time. I mean, I've turned off notifications on Facebook, on Instagram, Twitter, everything like that. I've turned off those notifications. I mean, trust me, Mark Zuckerberg, is going to be just fine if I don't check Facebook for 2 hours. But every time I open Facebook, I have like, it's like the 9+, right? Like it tells you that you have like so many notifications. I'm like, okay, well, let's see what's going on. But that's, I choose when to take that break instead of it notifying me, and I'm constantly getting that buzz or that vibrate on the phone or the watch to tell me to stop doing what I'm doing because something is more important. And like, most likely it's not.
Yeah. Right. I love that you said it's a productivity hack, because it really is. I mean, it's just knowing how you work, and then kind of like trying to figure out like how will you best work, and kind of like, for me at least, I do a lot of like time blocks, and I kind of basically take up a chunk and say, okay, this big chunk I need to finish in this time block. And I always tell him, like, if I'm not responding, it's because I literally put my phone away. Like I put my phone away. Because sometimes
I'm at work and I'm like, hey, how you doing? What's going on? Anything new? Meeting or something? And then no responses. I'm like,
I will say this, like, because I don't have a quote unquote normal job, and I have a lot of different like circles of friends that don't correlate, right? Like I have the personal finance people from FinCon, and I have all the travel people, right? And I have just friends from California, and I have friends all over. Like now I have all these podcast friends as well. They're all on different schedules, and so literally I could spend 24 hours just responding and talking to everybody.
Yeah.
You know, and if you don't kind of put some buffers on that, you'll never get anything done.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can go down that black hole of watching videos on YouTube and going into Reddit and everything else like that. I was like, oh my God, like you blink and it's been 3 hours, you know? So like, but I get you. So sometimes I will put the phone like in a different room, even with the do not disturb, sometimes I look it over. I'm like, oh, I wonder what's going on, you know? And especially right now with like, you know, while we're recording this, the market's kind of going haywire, you know? And so, but for me, I had a lot of money in cash. So I'm like, oh, I bought it a little bit the other day. So, but yeah, it's one of those things you just gotta, sometimes even if you're not working, you just need like a little bit of silence and just to kind of take a breath without getting another vibration, another notification, you know?
Yeah. With that kind of like the vein of like talking about hacks, what's been like your personal favorite travel hack or credit card hack?
Well, I have a lot of them. I don't know if there's like.
I know you have a lot. I'm just thinking of like your favorite
one
that you would like to share.
Well, I will say this, and this is probably more of like a beginner thing. Is it's hard to narrow down to one, so I'll give you a couple. Number one is keep your credit score as high as possible, because if you don't have those credit scores, you know, in the right ranges, you're not going to get approved for any of the offers out there, right? And then same thing is if you are doing rewards, the rewards are not worth it if you're paying interest on your card. So if you can't pay it off in full every month, like you need a low rate interest card or a balance transfer offer or something like that instead. Because yeah, I mean, there are a lot of great opportunities out there, but you just like, it's not worth it if you're getting yourself into a negative financial hole. Yeah. And the same thing is like, you know, even for me, I mean, I have like 40 credit cards. I pay like $4,000 a year in annual fees. So I do a lot. I'm way on the deep end. And I tell people, do not be like me. I mean, the average person doesn't have the time or the capacity to deal with all these different things. But if you just get one or two new cards and focus on those and save you $500 or $1,000 on your next vacation, that could be a huge win for you and your family. That means it might even mean the difference between going on vacation this year versus next year. And or when you're on vacation, not being able to like one thing I did like in Sydney a few years ago, they have the Sydney Harbor Bridge, and you can actually climb on top of the bridge. And if you're spending all this money on your hotel and you're spending the money on the flights and everything else, you know, if you're like anybody, like, well, I'm kind of running out of budget here. I don't want to spend $100 to go climb on top of the bridge, you know. But if you flew there for free and you're staying for free, it frees up your budget a little bit to be able to take advantage of some of those unique experiences that you're going to kick yourself later on. Yeah. You're like, well, I was already in Sydney, and if I wanted to go on that now, I have to fly back to Sydney, which is a long flight and an expensive flight, just to be able to do that one thing. So by using those miles and points, it's a way to create an opportunity for yourself to take advantage of having an amazing meal. Like I went with my buddy. We went to Germany, Paris, Amsterdam, and Belgium, and we went to this place called La Tour d'Argent, and he's a big foodie. And we had this meal. This was like a 3-star Michelin restaurant, and it was like 9 courses of duck. You know, and if we hadn't used miles and points to fly there and stay at all the different places we stayed, there's no way he would have spent $400 on that meal.
Right.
You know, and so that's, to me, that's the power of the miles and points, is being able to enable yourself to take advantage of those unique experiences, those once in a lifetime experiences for most people, honestly, because you're running out of budget. And so, but there are ways, like you mentioned, you know, with that article earlier, there are ways to earn airline miles and hotel points without flying or without staying at a hotel. The number one thing, especially right now where people are staying at home a lot more because due to the coronavirus and everything, is before you shop at that store you're shopping at, go to a portal and see if you can earn some cash back or some miles and points on that purchase. Go to like the number one website I go to is called cashbackmonitor.com. And so what they do, they're kind of like an aggregator where they tell you, okay, American Airlines is offering this many miles. You know, British Airways is offering this. Chase Ultimate Rewards is offering this. You know, Top Cashback is offering that. And so it basically lays out all the different options for you to earn cash back and miles and points. So that way, you know, you can figure out which is the best one to go through when you're placing that order.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And a lot of them, it's just, I think a lot of them is just kind of being mindful and knowing that you can just take that one little extra step that could actually get you further into your accumulating the points. So you can, the experience is not the flying to the country that you're visiting. The experience is when you're there and you get to actually experience and do these all like really fun activities. I love sharing when I went to New Zealand on like a solo adventure, and I literally I spent like very, very like, I think at that time I had enough for credit card points except for $80. So the flight was like $80 for me. And so, again, I didn't completely cover it, but I still paid very minimal for the flight. And then I just focused on literally paying for the best adventures. every fun adventure I could think of was kind of like what I spent on. And then I just skimped on food and I've stayed at hostels.
Well, that's exactly, that's exactly the thing is that a lot of people think it's a fail if they don't get the entire trip paid for with miles and points.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can just say I have a family of 4, right? And so if I can just get our 4 flights there paid for with the miles, and then I have to pay cash for the return flight, or if I can get my round trip ticket covered with the points, and then I have to pay you cash for the others. Those are all wins. I mean, that's savings in your pocket.
Right.
And maybe you don't have enough points for the entire trip. Same thing like you're staying at a hotel. Maybe you get 2 out of the 4 nights paid for with points. That's still a huge savings.
Yeah.
And like, don't feel sad or frustrated or whatever if you can't pay for the entire trip.
Right. Yeah. It's like basically like celebrating your every win, because every win is a win no matter what. Yeah.
Do you have any favorite places or places you've gone the most with your family?
Well, I would say because I've started doing a lot more solo travel with my kids because I have more free time than my wife, even when I worked in corporate, I had more vacation days than she did. And so she's always been of that mentality. Like, look, just because I only have 10 vacation days and you have 22, I'm not going to make you like not travel just because I don't have enough vacation time. And so, since my son was 5, I've actually been taking him on solo trips, all these different places. But the most recent one I think was really cool. I took him to Amsterdam and to Billund, Denmark, where the Lego factory's at.
Wow.
So we got to go to Legoland and Lego House and everything. That was really cool. We flew business class there and back. And so it was a cool experience for that as well. My daughter, I took her to Brussels for a week. We flew business class there as well. And then a few years ago, I took my wife, this is when we still living in LA. We flew business class over to Rome. We stayed at 5-star hotels in Rome and Milan. We went to the Cinque Terre on the west coast of Italy. And it was just a phenomenal trip. That trip, I think I added up. I think that trip would have cost $12,000 for the flights and the hotels. Wow. Obviously I'm frugal. I would never have paid cash for that. But the actual value of those flights and hotels were that much. We would have been flying economy if I had to pay cash instead of business class. But yeah, and so we paid, I think, around $1,000 or maybe $1,200. So we paid like a tenth of the cost of it.
So crazy.
Just for like the miles and points and like just like the taxes and fees that you have to pay.
Yeah.
And so it was an incredible experience, and it's great to be able to kind of spoil my wife that way, right? Like, that's one of the other things I look at it with the rewards is that you can do things that you would have never in a million years say, oh yeah, I'm going to drop 12 grand on this trip. Like, no, I'm going to drop 12 grand to reduce my mortgage. I'm not going to, I'm not going to spend 12 grand on a trip.
Yeah.
And so by doing those things, it's like you can reward yourself without, busting the budget.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely. I love that. Would you kind of we're wanting to transition into kind of just the giving part? I mean, I love your blog because I think that is, obviously, you're not just doing it for free. I mean, you get like there's affiliate links and you make money off of that. But really, there is a lot of value there, and it's a service to a lot of us who want to learn, about these things. So, just kind of like in the vein of serving. What other areas in your life do you love giving into other than just, writing for your blog and all that?
I don't know. I think it's more like on a personal basis. I mean, we've been talking a lot more about needing to get back into a situation where we are like actually donating at community centers and stuff like that to kind of show our kids that way. before we had kids, I used to donate time at like the Second Harvest Food Bank and those type of things to help sort food. And like we just had the tornado here through Nashville that hit, and a lot of families are affected. And so even though I'm not like a super uber popular blogger, I do have a little bit of a platform, and so I wrote a big blog post about my experience with the tornado and how people can give. And I put a lot of links in there as far as here's some places that donate. Here's some places where you can buy a shirt where they're either donating 100% of the proceeds or 100% of the profits. So basically encouraging people to give. And I actually decided that for the month of March that any affiliate revenue that I earn, all that's going to be donated to help with the recovery efforts here in Nashville. And Randy Peterson, who runs Boarding Area, where my blog is hosted at, he's incredibly nice and very supportive of all the different things that we try to do. And so he actually said he's going to match whatever money that I raise through my affiliate revenue. He's going to match at 100%. And that's just incredible. I mean, he obviously doesn't need to do that. He could have just said, here's $100 or whatever. He's rewarding me to go out there. And I replied back to him. I said, look, now that you've said that, it's on me to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to generate as much income. That way I can make you write a bigger check.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, it's one of those things that obviously I'm donating myself. I bought shirts from pretty much every place that's offering something where they're donating. I've donated it to different organizations. One of them was like Generous. They actually said for every $25, they'll match the first $25 that are donated. And so I opened up accounts for me and my wife and a couple other friends and donated $25 for each one. That way, all that money got doubled.
Doubled, yeah.
And so, but it's like one of those things that for you as well as anybody that's listening, although that you may think that you were not like something huge out there, but you got to remember, like you look at your stats, there are a lot of people that follow you. There are a lot of people that read what you have to say every day, and you can make a difference by putting it out there and telling people what you're doing and what you support and what you care about. And they will respond in kind. They will either share your message, they will donate, they will support you, and that's part of the thing about building that audience.
Yeah. It's basically what you're saying is that it doesn't really matter what kind of audience or platform you have. You're simply doing your part no matter what, and doing, sharing it regardless. Even if sometimes we could get into a bubble of thinking, well, who's going to care? Or, like sometimes like even for us, like, starting podcasts, even in just like that simple thing, sometimes you think, well, who's going to listen? But it doesn't matter. You do what you feel like you could add as a value to the community and the people around you. And you don't worry about, well, who's going to listen? Somebody will listen. Somebody will click on that link, somebody will donate. And if you never share, then nobody will click, but if you share, at least maybe one person will click, and then again, you found someone that would double it. So it's just, I think that it's amazing because what you're saying is you just do your part. You don't worry about, what kind of following you have. So,
yeah. Like you said, even if it's just one person
right,
that clicks on your links or donates because you said something, that's one more donation that those charities and those organizations receive that they would never have received.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. We're actually launching the podcast in April, but we've been doing kind of our social media booth and all that. So we'll be sharing a lot of stuff about your blog so that if anybody, and maybe later you can tell us like the links, and I'll post some of that stuff too, so that people can start kind of looking into it and giving and all that.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So for people to live their personal version of a wildly wealthy life, what would be 3 actionable tips that you would like to share to our guests?
Well, everything I do is around travel rewards. That's that. Yeah. So these will be in that realm. One, register your cards for the different rewards programs that benefit you based on where you spend your money. Right. Whether it's a debit card, credit card, or whatever, there are different platforms out there that will reward you for spending at different stores. So one is they have like dining rewards for all the different airlines like American, Delta, Southwest, United, etc. Basically, if you're dining at a participating restaurant, you'll get additional miles on that. Dosh is another one. You'll earn anywhere from like 5 to 10% cash back retailers as well as like restaurants. There's a couple different programs like that. So basically, look those up. I have some links on my site, and I'll send you the link. And so basically, like I looked at it, if you have a card that gives you like a bonus for dining, say like 3 or 4 times, that you can earn almost 20% back in rewards based on using that card if you're dining in a restaurant that participates in all those different programs. Yeah. So think of it, if you had a 20% off coupon for every time you ate out.
Yeah.
think about that type of change that can do for you.
Yeah.
That's number one. Again, number 2 is take care of your credit. Your credit is paramount. It makes a difference in whether you get hired for a job. Makes a difference if you what type of insurance rates you get in some states. And then obviously it factors into whether you're getting approved for loans, credit cards, and what type of interest rate you have. And as much as I love credit card rewards, if you are getting a mortgage or some other important loan in your life, it's okay. Hold off. Like there will be another offer. There'll be another great credit card. Make sure you get that loan first, because the difference in paying, higher rates or not even getting that loan. Think what would happen. Yeah, maybe you got $500 worth of points, but if that changed the interest rate on the mortgage you're getting, now you're going to pay an extra $10,000 over the next 30 years. That $500 was not worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like I said, like my motto is like travel more, spend less, and live better. And so it's like just think about the different ways you can do to try to optimize your life, and reduce some expenses here and there, and kind of snowball your debt where you're accelerating your path to financial freedom. Maybe you're not going to be like me. You're going to quit your corporate job and start doing something that's completely out of left field, but just even if you want to stay in your job until you reach retirement age, 65 or whatever, just having that financial freedom to be able to, change jobs, change employers, or to donate to your favorite charity, or to send your kids to college because you don't have any more debt. That's just a huge positive feeling.
Yeah. Thank you. Those are awesome tips. I love them. They're all very, very practical and actionable. So thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
We have come to our part of our show that is actually my favorite. It's the quick 10 rapid fire questions that we ask our guests. Some of them are related to our show, and some of them are just random facts that we want to know about our guests.
Okay.
We want you to say the first thing that comes to your mind. Don't censor yourself, and we'll be quick and concise.
Okay, just as long as there are not any questions that are my password reset questions for my banking account or anything like that.
That's actually number 1
No,
question.
Number is that off?
What street did you grow up on?
All right, here we go. Number 1, if you could choose one book to live by, what would it be?
I like The Millionaire Next Door. That's a great book. It's one of those things where it's all about, you don't have to, even if you have the cash and the wealth, you don't have to flaunt it. Generally the people who are flaunting it are the ones that have the least amount of wealth.
Yeah. Personal hero, living or deceased?
Hero. I don't know. Honestly, I don't really idolize people that way. If I had to choose somebody, obviously my dad was very important in my life. And so, he was a hero in many respects, but I don't know. I don't put people up on too much of a pedestal.
It's good.
Maybe that's just my personality. I don't know.
Yeah. Good answer. Number 3, the one thing you intentionally have to do every single day.
I don't know. I have to brush my daughter's hair because she has very fine hair, and if I don't, it turns into like dreadlocks. And if I don't do it, my wife gives me a hard time, and she gives me that look. She comes home, she gives me like that side eye, right? And I'm like, oh, sorry. And I make sure I do it.
That's awesome.
Cool. Number 4, what one hobby that brings you the most joy?
Earning miles and points is great, and traveling is great. But really, it's playing sports with the kids. Like when we bought a house that has a little bit like a extra yard, a side yard. It's pretty big, and so I just take the kids out there and we throw the ball or kick the soccer ball and everything like that. To me, that's great fun.
Fun. Number 5, most rewarding thing you've done for someone in need.
I'll say this, like, okay, this is going to sound stupid, but I play a game on my phone, and my wife gives me a hard time about it because she's like, "What are you doing? You playing that game again?" I'm like, "Yeah," but I've made friends with these people, and one of the guys that I become good friends with, he was like a mentor to me in the game, and again, that sounds stupid, but but we became good friends, and just over time, he was living in Hawaii. His wife was over in North Carolina, and helping take care of their grandkid. And he's like, I haven't seen my wife in a long time and everything like that. And obviously I'm trying to give him pointers as far as earning miles and points, but I just realized that it just wasn't something that was able for him to do. And so I just got a whim one day. I said, you know what? I really want you to see your wife. I want you to see your grandkid. And so I used my miles, and I booked him a flight. I said, just pay the taxes for me. And I will book you a flight. I think it's important that you see your family. And so, obviously I could have used those miles for myself and everything like that, but I have a lot of miles, and it's not gonna make a big difference to me that whether I have those extra miles or not.
Yeah.
But it made a huge difference for him. And while he came out here, I had a chance to meet him. Like, you're playing online with a game with people all over the world.
Yeah.
And while he came out to North Carolina, he drove through Tennessee, and we ended up having dinner together. And so it was really cool being able to meet him.
Yeah.
Really cool for him to be able to spend time with his wife and see his big grandbaby. And it's like the power of miles and points. I mean, would I have given him, $600-700 to go do that? Probably not. But the fact that I had all these miles and points, I'm like, okay, sure. It's almost like Monopoly money sometimes.
Yeah.
Amazing. I love that.
I didn't even want to go forward. That was great. Number 6 as a first movie quote that comes to mind.
I'm really bad with movies. Like, I enjoy them when I watch them, but I forget almost immediately. There's so many movies I've seen that I don't remember the ending. I'm like, I literally just watched this last week, and I don't remember the ending. But like Scarface is always like a classic, right? So, like, say hello to my little friends. That.
Yeah. Good.
All right. All right. Number 7. Last big purchase you made for yourself.
Well, last big purchase I almost made, but I realized that I could not because I didn't have my Tennessee license yet. I went to a handgun course, and I was going to buy a handgun, and they said, nope, sorry, you still have your California driver's license, so you can't. You can't. So, so that was an oops. The last big purchase besides that was probably buying 2 like 24-inch monitors, so that way I could be a little bit more productive at home. That way you have like the dual screens going. And my wife is always, for years, she told me like how awesome having 2 screens is. And I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. And then now that I have them, I'm like, oh, that is really cool.
Number 8 is a food you cannot live without.
Oh, pizza for sure.
Okay.
Pepperoni pizza. I eat that all the time. Actually, that's on my podcast. That's actually one of the questions I ask everybody is that what's the best place for pepperoni pizza in your town?
Awesome.
Oh. Not sure which one is here for LA, but let's go with number 9 right now. What is your spirit animal?
I've always loved polar bears. They look so chill and everything like that, but if you mess with them enough, like, they have these huge paws, and they could literally knock your head off. But yeah.
Number 10, the last one is finish the sentence. If I'm stuck on an island by myself, ...
If I'm stuck where?
On an island by yourself, ...
Hopefully they have Wi-Fi.
So you can write.
Well, that or stay in contact with friends. I mean, I'm kind of in an island by myself here in Nashville. Like, I have some friends, and I made more friends, but we don't have family nearby and stuff like that. And I was like literally, I'm in my office all day, every day. So it is like my own little island or jail cell or whatever, but, but I have Wi-Fi here, and so it's all good. But
The Wi-Fi saves the day.
Great.
All right. Well, Lee, thank you so much for being with us. I really enjoyed our conversation with you. And can you tell us where our guests can find out more about you? That's 1. And 2, if you have something that you want to encourage our guests to kind of serve into or give into, what would it be?
Sure. So number one is for my blog talking about airline miles, hotel points, product reviews, trip reports, stuff like that. That's baldthoughts.com. And so I'm bald, I don't have any hair. And so I'm always thinking about things. So that's where that came from. That, and then I have my podcast called We Travel There. So what I do is I interview people from all over the world to find out the best things to do in their city.
Wow.
And so it's basically like you're eavesdropping into a conversation where I'm like planning a trip to that city and hearing about all the cool things that the locals know about that you can't really just Google up.
That's
Wow.
cool.
I love that. Awesome. And the number 2 question is if you want to encourage our guests to kind of give into or serve into something, what would that be?
Well, yeah, like, if you have your own platform and you care about something, whether it's a charity or a cause or whatever, you have a platform and people are listening. So you can encourage people to donate and their time or their money or their resources towards that charity or cause that you have. But if you don't have anything like that, again, you can make an impact on somebody's life. Even if it's just like maybe like, again, right now we're talking about coronavirus and everything else. And there's a lot of people that are just don't have a lot of people near them, or they don't have that social network, or they don't have a lot of those resources. So offer up. One of my friends on Facebook posted, he said, look, if you need help, you're having trouble with your income or buying groceries or paying a bill, he's like, I will help you out. I'll give you up to $100. Just send me a personal message and I will help you out. And I thought that was just incredibly generous of him.
Yeah.
And, makes me feel like, wow, I should be doing something like that too, but it's one of those things where you can make a big difference in somebody's life, even if it's something small, like $100, right? Like that's not something huge. And, obviously if 1,000 people reached out to him, then that ends up being a lot of money, right? $100,000. But, you can make the impact of just a small gift to help somebody out. And even if you think it's only $5 or it's only $25 or whatever it is that you have to give, that can make all the difference to somebody else's life. So don't forget that. Don't minimize what you have. You can make an impact on somebody's life.
That's amazing.
Awesome.
That is a good note to leave with.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, that's our end for our podcast for today. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. It was great being here. And it was great to meet you both.
Well, that was such a great chat with Lee Huffman. I really thought that his idea of wealth was very, very powerful. He basically said that he was making a lot more money in his old job, in his corporate job, than he is right now. Very, very far from what he was making before in his corporate job. Yet he feels that he is wealthy right now because he can make choices to spend time with his family instead of sitting down and writing another article that could possibly make him more money. So it's really not about the amount that you have, but it's really about the time that you get to spend with your loved ones.
And I think the wake-up call, at least for me, was when his father had passed and he had that experience with the corporation that he was with, but it gave him kind of the push, the nudge that he needed to take that step, make those sacrifices, and really look at what is important for him and making the best life decision.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we hope that you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, make sure you tune in to next week's episode with Stephen Donovan. I love Stephen's story. He basically paid off about $100,000 in consumer debt and $200,000 in mortgage debt, which is huge. So really excited to share the episode with you guys. If you love today's episode, make sure you share it with at least one person. Go to iTunes and rate and review us. We would appreciate that very, very much greatly.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Wildly Wealthy Life. We hope that this episode has helped you take another step towards living fully, giving freely, and building a legacy that deeply impacts your community. We'd love to hear what you think about today's show. Please leave us a review or like us on iTunes and YouTube, and click the subscribe button so you won't miss a show. You can also visit us at wildlywealthylife.com for today's show notes. See you on our next episode. Thank you, and may you live a wildly wealthy life.